The Ingonyama Trust Board has called a media briefing. It comes amid a deepening dispute with the AmaZulu King Misuzulu kaZwelithini. A planned forum to address land-related matters under the trust collapsed yesterday after the king snubbed the gathering. Let's speak to associate researcher at the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies, and that's Siphesihle Mbhele. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mbhele. Thanks very much for your time. First, perhaps, what you make of the king's disapproval of this engagement between the board and Amakosi.
Thank you very much for and good afternoon to your viewers as well. I think most of what is important is not really what I make, but what the traditional leaders who are currently attending this strategic engagement forum at the Durban ICC make of this. Is there was a great shock, a sense of shock at the disapproval at of this particular event by the king, and the fact that, you know, the king was in the program and in the morning, the leaders, traditional leaders, heard that the king is not supporting this particular engagement. This came as a great shock to traditional leaders in this place, and a lot of them also saying that if the king is not agreeing with this process, then who are we to be able to proceed with this? So yeah, it came as a shock to people who are attending, as well as the traditional leaders, but also the fact that there are presentations from officials from the department who were also in the program, who are no longer going to be giving those insightful presentations that everyone is looking forward to.
But how much of that has to do with the fact that perhaps the king doesn't approve of the minister's intention to suspend the board?
Currently, so how we got to this particular point is that the king last year had a meeting with the minister where he expressed some of his feelings around his disapproval of the current board because of issues around cooperation and the issue around how they were particularly selected to be as part of the board. And the minister sent a letter in the past week, it's not dated, it was by email, to state his intention to put this particular board on special leave. And so in this current sort of event, the intention was to close this event because the king was not in agreement with this event. But this, I mean, as I said, was a great shock on the people who are attending this event, to the traditional leaders and traditional authorities, particularly because this is the first of its kind in the history of the existence of the Ingonyama Trust Board, where you find that a lot of traditional authorities have questions on wanting to understand what the Ingonyama Trust is and what is the Ingonyama Trust Board, and how does it relate to the work that they do. They're seeing a lot of things happening in rural areas, in KZN, in Nambit, in Ladysmith, up to the north, around economic development and infrastructure. And all of these things are impacting rural land, which these kings have, you know, customary right over, and which these kings are managing. So this was some engagement that these traditional authorities, Amakosi, were looking forward to be able to learn from these processes. And this is one of the shockers that sort of is a disappointment with regards to this event.
I'm sure our viewers are asking some questions here, because if, as you say, the king wasn't happy with this board or how it was appointed, and you now have the minister through that letter, which you say, I mean, has no date, it was sent by email, saying that he intends to suspend the board. One would have thought that the king would be happy with that, because after all, he didn't approve of this board or how it was appointed in the first place.
So, indeed, so the letter was sent in response to, following, as it was presented yesterday by the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, following the meeting of the minister together with the king. And so the intention, so there seems to be sort of a coherence over the issue around this particular event. Some of the statement that the Prime Minister made was to say that even the Minister of Land Reform was not aware of this current event as well. And as a result of that, all the officials who were sent to this event to speak in this event and give interventions were recalled from this event. Hence, they're not going to be attending. And so there seems to also be these two centers of power that are not particularly coherently in agreement with this particular platform. But some of the things that the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies wanted to particularly were interested in coming into this event was in our work around conservation and the expansion of conservation in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And sort of this conservation is expanding on customary land, on Ingonyama Trust land, and there has an implications on people and communities that are living in these places. So we were particularly here also to hear about those kinds of things, on the implications of conservation, on land use, on people and nature. So yeah.
Would you have any insights, or are you any wiser as to what this afternoon's briefing could be about?
My word, I wouldn't want to preempt what the briefing was about, because if there should be one thing that we learn about today or this particular process is that none of what happened was expected. But what I would say is that a lot of the program that happened today, the interventions that are currently happening right now, are not things that were in the program that was planned initially. Which means, so yesterday, after the sort of disruption in the morning and the tension around the King's disapproval, and the pulling out of officials who were meant to give presentations, it's sort of creating an organic space for traditional authorities, the ones who were left behind at least, to shape the program the way that they wanted to. So there were a lot of questions which the traditional authorities, the Amakosi, wanted to ask and wanted to be addressed today. And so these were issues around, they posed questions around the mining rights, the existence of mining companies on traditional land in this province, and the tensions between Amakosi and mining companies, and the issues around forestry that is continuing to grow in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and how that is impacting traditional authorities and the areas in which they govern. So these were the issues that, and some of the questions that traditional authorities have in relation to shaping this current program. And these are also inventions around, boundaries and territories, and wanting clarifications on territories, and on premise on the fact that before 1994, the transition to democracy led to demarcations that are currently creating tensions in kingdoms in the area. So I'm assuming that a lot of the briefing later on today will come from the program, which was shaped by those interventions yesterday, which today was really also focusing on some of the technical issues on what understanding the Ingonyama Trust Board, the Ingonyama Trust, and the Ingonyama Holdings, and some of the sort of bureaucratic structures and technical things that the Amakhosis might be dealing with on a daily basis, that they would benefit from as well as they continue to do their work.